It was December 1989, cold, gray, uncertain, in the Romanian city of Timișoara, the streets filled with chanting voices. Soldiers hesitated, protesters shouted, and for the first time in decades, the silence of fear cracked open by Christmas. Nicolae Ceaușescu, the most rigid, theatrical, and isolated of Europe's Cold War dictators, would be gone. Tried, executed. His regime collapsed in days, but for more than 2 decades, he had ruled Romania with an iron grip, building a state in his own image, paranoid, self-obsessed, and disconnected from reality. This is the story of Nicolae Ceaușescu, the madman who made Romania his mirror, a tale of surveillance, repression, and personal ego ending in a final, spectacular fall. Nicolae Ceaușescu was born on January 26, 1918, in the rural village of Scornăsecti in southern Romania, one of 10 children in a poor peasant family. He left home at age 11 and moved to Bucharest to apprentice as a shoemaker, there, in the capital. Young Nicolae was drawn to radical politics. He joined the illegal Romanian Communist Party at just 14, and began a life in and out of prison. Jailed multiple times for subversion, Ceaușescu gained a reputation for loyalty and discipline. He wasn't charismatic or intellectual, but he was reliable. In prison, he met Gheorghe Gorgudei, a rising figure in the communist underground. That relationship would shape his future when Romania fell under Soviet occupation. In 1944, and the monarchy was overthrown in 1947, the communists came to power. Ceaușescu was brought into the new regime. Throughout the 1950s, Ceaușescu rose steadily, serving as deputy defense minister and party secretary. When Gorgudei died in 1965, Ceaușescu, still seen as a modest, safe figure, was selected as general secretary of the Romanian Communist Party. At first, he appeared reformist. He ended forced collectivization. He slightly eased censorship in 1968, when the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia to crush the Prague Spring. Ceaușescu publicly condemned the invasion, gaining rare praise in the Western leaders. Hungry for a communist ally outside Moscow's grip, opened their doors. Romania received trade aid, and even visits from Nixon and the British royals. But while the world looked at Ceaușescu and saw a dissident communist, inside Romania, a new reality was forming, one centered entirely around him. By the early 1970s, Ceaușescu's rule transformed into something different. He and his wife Alina created a cult of personality, so elaborate, so suffocating, it surpassed nearly all others in Eastern Europe. His image flooded newspapers, classrooms, factories, and television. He was called the genius of the Carpathians, the Danube of thought, the visionary conductor of destiny. Children sang songs to him in school. His speeches were broadcast across the nation, greeted by choreographed applause. Alina, despite having little formal education, was elevated to near-equal status. She was declared a world-class chemist, decorated with medals, and placed in charge of scientific and cultural policy. Their birthdays became national holidays. Museums were built in their honor. The line between state and family vanished. Romania became not just a dictatorship, but a stage, with the Ceaușescus as its lead actors. To maintain this illusion, fear was essential. Ceaușescu built one of the most comprehensive secret police forces in the world, the Securitate. With an estimated 500,000 informants, the Securitate monitored every part of life, workplaces, homes, churches, and even families. A casual comment could lead to an arrest. Typewriters were registered, foreign mail was read, phone calls were tapped, jokes were dangerous, dissent was not crushed in public trials. But in quiet disappearances, Romanians learned to speak in code, or not at all, and all the while, Ceaușescu's grip only tightened. In the 1980s, Ceaușescu launched one of his most ambitious and disastrous campaigns. Obsessed with erasing Romania's foreign debt, he imposed extreme austerity. Food, fuel, medicine, and electricity were rationed. Heating in winter was scarce. Hospitals lacked basic supplies. Meanwhile, massive building projects swallowed national resources. The most infamous, the Palace of the People, a colossal parliamentary building in Bucharest, the second largest administrative building in the world. Entire neighborhoods were bulldozed to make space. Churches, monasteries, and historic districts vanished, while Romanians queued for bread. Ceaușescu built a palace of marble, chandeliers, and empty halls, a monument to his ego. In villages, his systematization program relocated entire populations into concrete apartment blocks. Rural traditions, architecture, and culture were uprooted in the name of modernization. It was not modernization. It was control. By the late 1980s, Ceaușescu had paid off Romania's debt, a rare feat in the Eastern Bloc, but the cost was human. Malnutrition rose. Infant mortality climbed. Electricity cuts became routine. And unlike other communist states, Ceaușescu refused to reform. While Gorbachev introduced glasnost and perestroika in the Soviet Union, while Poland held elections. While the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, Ceaușescu clung to the past. He held massive rallies, praised Stalin, outlawed abortion and contraception to raise the birth rate, leading to orphanages filled with starving children. He spoke of greatness, progress, loyalty. But behind the scenes, even his closest aides knew the truth. The people were suffering, and the illusion was crumbling. On December 16, 1989, protests broke out in Timișoara, sparked by the attempted eviction of a dissident Hungarian pastor. Crowds formed, police intervened, then the army opened fire. Dozens were killed, but instead of crushing resistance, the violence spread it. Within days, protests erupted in Bucharest. On December 21st, Ceaușescu held a mass rally, expecting loyalty, but for the first time in memory, the crowd booed. The dictator, confused, shaken, froze on live television. The silence broke by December 22nd. The army defected. Ceaușescu and Alina fled in a helicopter, then were captured by their own troops. A hasty tribunal was organized. On Christmas Day, 1989, Nicolae and Alina Ceaușescu were executed by firing squad. No appeals. No last-minute rescue. No redemption. The regime fell with stunning speed. When the dust settled, Romanians faced a shattered country behind the grand speeches and official photographs. There had been misery, hunger, and fear. The archives revealed a state built on paranoia. Families had been torn apart by informants. Artists silenced. Children abandoned. The orphanages filled with neglected, sick children shocked the world, and the Grand Palace in Bucharest. It still stands a hollow monument to excess in a city that still bears its scars, even after 3 decades. Ceaușescu's legacy divides opinion. Some, especially in rural areas, remember him as a nationalist, a man who stood up to the Soviets and erased foreign debt. But for most, he is remembered as the dictator who lost touch with reality, who mistook obedience for love, silence for consent, spectacle for strength. Nicolae Ceaușescu rose from peasant roots to absolute power. He ruled not by inspiring hope, but by silencing fear. And in the end, his empire collapsed, not from a foreign invasion, but from within. Not because the people were weak, but because the illusion could no longer hold. He built Romania in his own image, rigid, paranoid, empty at its core. And when that image cracked, everything fell with it.